we say as sociologists, and I'm not talking for all sociologists, but my training has been that when we're thinking about discrimination, for example, for me as a white person, I identify as white. If we are, as a white person, if I have some bigoted ideology about people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, or people of color, any people of color, what ends up happening is if I'm acting on that, that would be racist behavior. You can also have racist attitudes. But because I'm white and I identify that way and I am identified that way, I end up with some unearned benefits from that white skin privilege, basically. And with that comes the weightiness of it. And so how that plays out oftentimes is, oftentimes white folks say, I don't want to be racist, I don't want to be thought of as racist. But the reality is, if you are behaving in these kinds of ways, then that's how that plays out. A person of color may have very discriminatory ideologies or attitudes, right, towards other people of color or even towards white folks. And from a sociological perspective, I call that discrimination. I don't call that racism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was hearing someone talk about racism, and one of the big differences, there's a power structure that exists and control that exists in racism that you may not have if someone is prejudiced or they're bigoted or they're biased, right? In that sense. Can you talk a little bit about that differentiator when it comes to what makes racism? Because people react pretty significantly when you say you're a racist. I could say you're prejudiced to someone and they kind of don't react the same way they do if you say you're racist.
Mm-hmm. So there's a history to what you're asking, and this is the way I would describe it, is the fact that we have an institutionalized systemic, this legacy of institutionalized systemic discrimination against certain groups of people in our society, right, based on race or ethnicity. So when you think about that legacy, that history, that there is power that comes with the language we use, but it also comes to when somebody hears the word, you're a racist, they immediately think cross-burning, they think KKK, white supremacist organizations. And they think, well, I'm not that, so I'm fine. Like, I don't do that stuff, so I should, what are you talking about? I'm racist. I'm not racist. So I'm not here to call everybody racist. Like, that's not what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, none of us are.
No, but right. But it is important to understand that our society gives us racist messages all the time, whether it be in the media, whether it be the movies we watch. I mean, there's research upon research that just shows those messages that we're receiving, and they get stuck in our brain. That's where prejudice and bias, they get stuck in our brain through osmosis. Again, no fault of anyone's, but really that, and unless we are critiquing it along the way and we know what to look for and say, yeah, that seems like a racist idea or a racist ad, or somebody just said something that, and whatever language you want to use, to me, language is important, but I don't want it to get people tripped up either. Like, from engaging in this conversation, you don't necessarily have to always get it perfectly right. Like, oh, I used the wrong word here. That's really, in my mind, is not why we're taking some time to define some of these words, is not to make sure that people are using the 100% right language all the time. That's less important to me than just taking action. Get involved, like, jump in. We need more people jumping into this conversation.